All right. Good morning, everybody. And today we're going to at least start talking about the more practical side of Purim. And then we'll share some insights as well for the whole holiday of Purim. This follows the 5 previous weeks where we studied through the book of Esther. So hopefully everybody has a deep appreciation for the book of Esther. All right. So the day before Purim, this year Purim starts Thursday night. So this Thursday night, Purim is going to start. The day before Purim, which would mean Thursday, on the Hebrew calendar, that is the 13th day of Adar, is called Ta'anit Esther, the fast of Esther. And it is a fast that begins at dawn, and it continues till after it gets dark. So Thursday, all day is a fast. Like any fast day on the Hebrew calendar, there is additions to the prayer service that we do. So in the morning, we add a whole section called Slichot in our morning prayers. This is Thursday morning, so before Purim. And we read from the Torah, a special Torah reading for a fast. And then in the afternoon, so that would be Thursday afternoon, also we read from the Torah, special Torah reading, and we also add 1 or 2 sections into the prayers. Well, actually not, because Thursday afternoon, it's coming up on the holiday, so we don't add that. Now, there's a well-known custom that it's called Erev Purim, the day before Purim. So this year, Thursday, the 13th of Adar, when we pray the Mincha prayer, we commemorate the giving of the half shekel. So you know that in the temple times, every year each person would come and give a half a shekel to the temple, and we commemorate this by giving. Here in America, we don't have half shekel, but we actually try and find a half dollar coin, and we give that to tzedakah. Now, because the word teruma, which means offering, is mentioned in the Torah 3 times, we actually give the half shekel 3 times. So, the way this is done is you can leave it open. They've simplified it. In most synagogues, it became simple for you. So, for example, what do? We have over here in the synagogue 3 half-dollar coins. Right? It's not 2 25-cent pieces. It's a half-dollar coin. We have 3 of them. So we put them out on the table, and anybody who wants can come and buy them. So I bring $1.50 or $2. I put down my $2, and I purchase the 3 half-dollar coins. Now they're mine. I bought them. And now I give them back to charity, so I put them back on the plate. And John comes and he does the same thing. He gives $2. He buys the 3 half-dollar coins from the synagogue pot. Now they're yours. So now you give them to charity. And that way we go around. We're talking about the fact that on the day before Purim, this year's Thursday is a fast day. It's called Ta'anit Esther. Fast starts at dawn and goes till the nighttime. And the custom is that by the Mincha prayer, the afternoon prayer of that day, we give, we commemorate half shekel, because in the temple times, they used to give every year to the temple a half a shekel. And the way we do it is we use half-dollar coins. They're not impossible to get. Like I have half-dollar coins here that somebody, and I was just explaining that because most people don't have half-dollar coins, you just you buy it from the synagogue and give it back to the charity. And then the next person buys it from the charity and gives it to the charity, and so on and so forth. And that way we go around. And because the Torah uses the word teruma, which means an offering, a donation, 3 times regarding this half shekel, the tradition is to do it 3 times. So if you attend any synagogue on Thursday, if you don't get to do it on Thursday, then you're going to try to do it on Purim as well. Many have a custom that you give half a shekel on behalf of each of your family members. So if you have 3 family members, then you're taking the 3 half shekels 3 times. So this whole thing of coming, let's say bringing $2, putting down the $2, buying the $3.50, and then giving the $3.50. You do it once for each family member. So, and if you own, well, if you own, unless you have your family members with you and they're of age that they can do it by themselves, then that's even better. But if they're not with you or they're young, you do it on their behalf.
What is the dollar equivalent of half a shekel?
So here in America, we don't use the half shekel. We actually use the $half coin.
50 cents?
It's a
coin.
It's an actual coin. You ever seen it?
50 cents, one
He
coin.
used to have John Kennedy on it. I don't know if they still do. Or
Here's the $half coins. I'm honestly not sure exactly how rare they are or how they're not. Ken is not on, but he brought a bunch. It's literally just $half. It says United States of America, $half. I don't know whose face that is, but
that's Kennedy,
has a Kennedy on it.
JFK.
These are all these coins I'm holding are 1973, 79.
76, yeah, look like three.
If you get any 72s earlier, I think they're all silver. So hold on to this.
76, 72.
I think so.
Silver. 71.
I'm not for sure.
All right. 64.
That's it.
Are we playing bingo here?
I'm telling you the years, but here's also 1990. Anyway, so most shuls have these, and when you come to the synagogue, you're not supposed to put down $2 or $1.50 and run off with it. We want to keep it so that every year on Purim we can do this. And here I have, 3, 6, 9, 12. So 4 people can do it at the same time. And that's called giving a half a shekel. It's not directly connected to the holiday of Purim necessarily, but in the temple times leading up to Passover, this is kind of when they would do it. A fast day is always associated with giving charity. So that's an important thing.
But I remember on Thursday you said that a fasting on a Purim was ruled out by rabbinical law.
No, I didn't say fasting. I said not working on Purim.
Oh, not working. Okay. Sorry,
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, also the fast is not on Purim. The fast is the day before.
Because
So this year Thursday is the fast. Then Thursday night, the way it works is like this. So the day ends, whatever time it gets dark outside, and theoretically now you can eat. But typically you don't land up eating for another hour, even after it gets dark, because this is the order of the day. So Purim starts. It gets dark. The first thing that we have to do is we have to pray the evening service. The evening service as we do on any day of the week. It's the same evening service with one exception, that in the Amidah prayer, we add a special paragraph called Al Hanisim. So you'll see in the Amidah prayer, there's a section called Al Hanisim. And during that prayer, we thank Hashem for the miracles that he performed for us. And there's like a little summary of the Purim miracle, what happened. So we do the evening service. And after we do the evening service, now it is time to read the Megillah. So the Megillah, of course, is the actual scroll. It's a handwritten scroll where one person is going to read the Megillah on behalf of everybody. And the custom is that you open the Megillah, you open it up. The Chabad custom is that you fold it in 3 parts. I know I'm running around over here, but if you give me 1 second, I'm going to demonstrate it for you.
community group.
So this is what a Megillah scroll looks like. Different than a Torah, it's not on a handle, but it is written on parchment, and it is written with a quill, feather, and so on. So Thursday night, we fasted all day. We now prayed the evening service, and now it's time to read the Megillah. So what I was saying is that the Chabad custom is that we fold the Megillah in 3 parts. I actually have clips that I use to hold it in place.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it becomes like this. This is how I literally have clips that they're not in there, but usually they're in there. There's clips So we can hold it in place like this. And there you go. You see it's in 3 pieces. So we start reading. And when we get to the next part, so you just want to flip over. And then when you get to the 3rd part, it's a little bit more complicated. Why do we fold it in 3 parts? Because the Megillah is called a letter. So a letter is kind of, we wanted to look a little bit like a letter, and that means that you fold it in 3 parts. So it's Thursday night. It's the night of Purim. We prayed the evening service. Many people have not yet even eaten because they were fasting all day. But now it's time to read the Megillah. We open up the Megillah, and it's time to read. So before we read the Megillah, there are 3 blessings to be said. Now, in order to fulfill the obligation of hearing or reading the Megillah, you have to hear every single word. Can't miss a word. It's complicated, right? So the reader who's reading is reading on behalf of everybody. So the way it works is as follows. If you have with you a kosher Megillah scroll, meaning a Megillah scroll that's written on parchment, handwritten and so on and so forth, and you're in the crowd, you can actually read along with the reader. So he's reading and you're reading along, and that way you're making sure not to miss any words. If you don't have a kosher Megillah scroll, you just have the book. So then you follow along, and you make sure that you're following along so you can hear every single word. Before the reading, the reader makes 3 blessings. After each of these blessings, everybody in the crowd says Amen. Amen is kind of a way of making sure that the blessing also counts for you. So if I'm the reader, I'm making the blessings. I have in mind, I say, these blessings and this reading is for me and everybody who wants. And you have in mind that the blessings that the rabbi is making is counting for me as well. And I want to be included in his mitzvah. And then it's important not to make any interruption between the blessings and the reading, and not to make any interruptions during the reading as well, as we mentioned, because you want to hear every single word. Then we start reading. The reading is the reading. You all know how the Megillah works. And the Chabad custom is that when we say Haman's name, and Haman's name doesn't have a description next to it, we don't do all the banging. We only do the banging and the graggers and we only do the blotting out of Haman's name if Haman's name is mentioned with a description. So in some cases, Haman's name just says Haman. Other places it says Haman, the son of Amdasa, Haman the Agagite, Haman the evil man. So if you come over here or you go to a Chabad synagogue, you might hear the word Haman and nobody's banging. So don't get surprised. It's not because we love Haman. It's because we only bang when Haman's name is mentioned with a description. Other communities, other synagogues have a custom to shake the graggers and bang and everything anytime Haman's name is mentioned. And then, each community according to their tradition. The person who's reading has to be very careful that when everybody starts shouting, he shouldn't continue reading until all the noises die down. So that way, everybody can hear every single word.
I mean, I've been here before when you've done it, but how do you signal that there's a description to it versus no description? Because it all sounds the same to us.
So what I do over here is that I have a gragger next to me, and I tell everybody, don't shake your gragger unless I shake my gragger. And also, you can even hear the what's it called when your voice goes higher or lower?
Tone of voice.
The tone of voice. If I can see that it's Haman without a description, I'll just rush through it. And if it's going to be Haman with a description, then I'll say, Haman! And when you hear that, that means that we're all shaking. But depending on how long these Hamans take, your Megillah reading can be anywhere between 25 to 30 minutes, up to 50 minutes to an hour. So it's very much kind of dependent on that. Now, throughout the Megillah, there are 4 verses where the reader stops and everybody else says that verse out loud before he does it, and then he follows them. So one of the verses talks about Mordechai, another one talks about Jewish people celebrating, and two other verses. So 4 verses that the reader stops, everybody else says, Ish Yehudi, there was a Jew, and his name was Mordechai. They say the verse, and when they finish, the reader goes back and repeats it after them. Another interesting thing that is the sons of Haman, in the 9th chapter of the Megillah, it says that there were 10 sons of Haman and they were all killed. And the 10 sons of Haman, it says their name and then it says the word ve'et. So this son and this son, this son and this son, this son and this son. And the custom is that you're supposed to say them all in one breath because you kind of want to get through them. They're not such good people. So it's not like you want to take smoke breaks in between. So you try to read them all in one breath. So often it sounds like quite the feat because you're saying all 10 names and they have very weird names. The names like Parshandasa, Ve'es Dalphon, Ve'es Spasa, Ve'es Porata, Ve'es Adalia, Ve'es Aridasa, Ve'es Parmashta, Ve'es Arisai. So sometimes the reader kind of stops before, gathers all of his breath that he could, and then it sounds like it sounds going very fast. But the idea is that you are. By the way, for the reader, there's another trick that people aren't aware of, which is that you're not supposed to read the Megillah by heart. You're supposed to be reading it from looking inside. Now, when you get to these 10 sons of Haman, the way they're presented looks like this. See that? So it has the name and then an empty line, and on the other side of the line it says the word ve'es, which means and, for those of you on Zoom. And then, so not only are you saying it fast, but you also have to be paying attention that you're looking at the right words. You have to say ve'es Ashandasa, ve'es Dalfat, al Dalphon, ve'es Aspasa, ve'es. You have to be going back and forth, and your eyes have to be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You can't just close your eyes and say them all off by heart. So it's another challenge of reading the Megillah. Nothing you can't handle.
So the thing that's interesting about the Megillah compared to the Torah, besides the fact that it's not on scrolls, on the Megillah, you're touching it. You're not using a yod.
Yeah, that is very interesting. So John is talking about the fact that the Megillah, you're touching it.
And it's parchment.
Also doesn't have God's name. It's so it's kind of a much lesser level of holiness. Not that we would just, mistreat it, but you're 100% right. It's not considered to be at all on the same. We don't touch the Torah out of respect to the Torah, but we don't give the same level of honor and respect.
I think you didn't also touch it because of the oils and everything on your hand.
No, but Megillah is not word of God, right? It's prophets who wrote it. Right? That's why it's not carrying. It's just a more historical document, right?
It is considered to be, prophetic. It's considered to be the word of Hashem through. You have to understand that in the olden days, they had, for each book of the prophets, they had one of these. They had the book of Samuel and one of these. They had the book of, Ezekiel and one of these. Now, nowadays, we never have to read the book of Ezekiel from a scroll, because when do you ever read the book of Ezekiel? But the Megillah, we have an instruction to read it. So we have to continue making them on parchment with ink. But to your point, it's not considered on the same level as the Torah, but it's still holy and so on and so forth, which is interesting because, to your point, when a person learns to be a scribe, they always start with a Megillah. That's the entry level. Why? Because of all of these reasons, right? It's not the Torah scroll.
You have to be perfect.
It's not the Torah scroll. It's not a mezuzah. It's not tefillin, and also it doesn't have God's name. So, actually, I'll tell you the honest truth. When I purchased this, I purchased it from a scribe, and then at some point, I found in this one right in front of me that there was a serious mistake. There was one word that was repeated, and not real cups.
It's okay. It's real.
Listen.
It is interesting that, like, the Megillah is always the entry of a scribe, and it was a real thing. I found one word that had been doubled. I wonder if I can't remember exactly which word it was. I shipped it back to the scribe and I said, "You need to fix this."
Well, how can you fix it? Just take the whole section out, put a new section in?
No.
They probably wide it up.
So the way you white out in the Megillah in one of these things is that you take a knife and you scratch it out.
Yeah, but then you're gonna have a hole there.
If you do it too rough, you're going to get a hole. But if you do it if you're very gentle, you will not get a hole. Which is also true about the Torah. The Torah also you can scratch out, unless it's God's name. So God's name you can't scratch out. So then you have a problem. But if it's not God's name, then yeah, in the Torah you also scratch out. You'll see every so often they basically scratch very lightly because the ink kind of sits on top. It's almost you can feel the ink. You can feel it. You can almost feel the ink. You feel it. So they use a very gentle. They use a very gentle knife and also like an eraser, and basically you're just gonna try and get it off.
So do you have an empty spot there?
If I can find where the mistake was, I'll look it up and we'll see how he changed.
You never fixed your paperwork at school to present parents better grades? That's normal.
But then you can use whiteout.
No.
Then I can tell.
We scraped it with a sharp blade and put a new marker in.
They're always sitting with the blade because sometimes if the letter goes a little too far, there's a lot of blade work to be done.
Yeah, I had an honor in my previous synagogue. We were writing the Torah for 15 years. Synagogue had anniversary, so they hired from New York, whatever name, and for almost half a year, every member of synagogue wrote a letter.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. And my letter was Yud, the smallest of them all.
Anyway, I don't know where it is, but if I find it, I'll can't remember if it was an email or it was a text. All right. So the night of Purim, we davened the evening service. Now we read the entire Megillah with all of these things that we spoke about in reading the Megillah. And then when the Megillah is finished, so what's interesting is there's blessings to be said before you read the Megillah. And that you say those blessings no matter how many people are in attendance. But after you finish reading the Megillah, there's another blessing to be said, but that blessing can only be said if there's a minyan in attendance.
So you can read the Megillah without having a minyan?
Correct.
But to do the one blessing, you have to have a minyan. Well, because it mentions God in it? Or?
Correct. After blessing can only be said if you have a minyan. The before blessing is said regardless, but the after blessing is only said if you have a minyan. At this point, if you haven't yet eaten, you should definitely go and eat because you've been fasting all day, so it would be a good idea to go and eat. And then besides for that, there's not so much else to do on the nighttime of Purim. Although you're supposed to set a table, your house should kind of reflect the fact that it's a holiday. Your clothes should reflect the fact that it's a holiday. And there should be a festive and holiday spirit in the house. But there's not too much else to be done in the nighttime itself.
So if it's until nighttime, and so the fast is really the same here. Well, I guess it's not
The
same
fast is
time
from
as Yom Kippur.
Yeah, because the fast starts dawn in the morning till night.
Yom Kippur would start the night before.
All right. So now we go to sleep, we wake up in the morning. When we wake up in the morning, we have a shachrit we have regular Shachrit. Every morning we pray Shachrit. So we put on a talit and we put on tefillin and we begin prayer. Again, in the Amidah prayer, we say a special paragraph called Va'al Hanisim. And then after we finish, after the Amidah, we take out the Torah. Like this year will be Friday, on a regular Friday morning. We never read from the Torah. So it's a special reading from the Torah specifically for Purim. And it talks about Amalek. So yesterday, if you remember, we had a reading from the Torah about the nation of Amalek. And also on Purim morning, won't be the same one. It's a different one, but it's also about the reading of Amalek. And it's interesting is that after you read from the Torah, the Chabad custom is that actually the Torah stays out. So the Torah will be covered and somebody will be holding the Torah, but the Torah will stay out. And now we're going to read the Megillah again. So the person is supposed to hear the Megillah reading twice, once at night and once in the morning. So in the morning, after the Torah reading, the Torah, we stay the Torah out. And now everybody's also wearing tefillin, which is a beautiful thing. So we're dressed in talit and tefillin, and we're going to read the Megillah again, the same kind of rules that apply the night before as well. All right. So that is the first important instruction of Purim, that you have to hear the Megillah once at night and once during the day. Now, a lot of times, if you can't make it to the Megillah reading in the morning, like while wearing talit and tefillin, you can hear the Megillah anytime during the day. So, for example, here at Chabad of Frisco, we're going to do one Megillah reading Thursday night and one Megillah reading Friday afternoon. We're not doing a service Friday morning with the Torah and everything, but you do what you can. All right. The second mitzvah important thing is that on the day of Purim, so not on the night, but the day of Purim, before we read the Megillah, we're going to make three blessings. We always make three blessings before we read the Megillah. One of those blessings is the blessing called Shehechianu. Familiar with that blessing? Shehechianu v'kimanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh, where we thank Hashem for giving us the opportunity to once again come to this new mitzvah of Purim. When a person hears that blessing, he should have in mind that this blessing is also applying to the other mitzvot, to the other important things that he's going to do throughout the day, fulfilling the mitzvot of Purim, because there's going to be other mitzvot of Purim, and theoretically they also deserve their own blessing, Shechianu. So you have in mind that this one Shechianu that you're making before reading the Megillah is going to apply to all the mitzvot of the day. What are some of the other mitzvot of the day? So first of all, we have the mitzvah called Mishloach Manot. Mishloach Manot means to send gifts. Matana means a present, and it has to be a gift of food. So the way to fulfill the mitzvah is to send a gift of food to one person. In other words, at least one person, and the person that you're sending the gift of food to has to be at least two different foods. So not enough to send them just, an apple. It has to be two things. But you don't have to only do one person. You can do as many people as you want. And if you do more, it's considered praiseworthy. Now, it only counts if you send them food which is readily edible. If you send a guy raw rice or uncooked fish, that doesn't count. You have to send them a food which is ready to be eaten. So if it's meat or fish or chicken, it has to be ready to eat, and it can't be raw. And otherwise, of course, you could just send an apple and a bag of chips or something like that. So a minimum of two foods to one person, and it's ready to eat food. By the way, the real way to do the mitzvah is to send it through an emissary, because real sending is not when I give it to you in hand, but real sending, which is the language of the Megillah, is to send it through an emissary. So you find an emissary, and meaning, just you say, hey, John, can you please give this to Max? And John takes the food that comes from me, and he gives it to Max, and through that I fulfill the mitzvah. It has to also be done on the day of Purim. So if you send somebody food the day before, it's a nice thing, but it doesn't count for the actual mitzvah. In order to do the mitzvah, it's not a complicated mitzvah. You literally just take a bag of pretzels and an apple and give it to a friend, and you've done the mitzvah. Then there is another mitzvah, which is to give tzedakah, to give charity on the day of Purim. And the words that the book of Esther uses says matanot le'evyonim, which means gifts to poor people. So from here we learn that it has to be at least two gifts to two separate poor people. So you have to give one person and another person. And by the way, this sounds very simple, but it's not actually so simple. Why? Because, first of all, let me ask you this. Where are you going to find a poor person that will receive the money from you on the day of Purim? Where are you going to go to find such a person?
Beggars on the streets, right?
In Frisco, there's no beggars on the streets.
Yeah, you can find. Go to Frisco downtown. There is people who live in there.
But to do the mitzvah, I think they have to be Jewish.
Social media, Facebook.
Say it again?
Social media, Facebook. There are Jewish groups.
Yeah, no, so it definitely has
Homeless
become
shelter.
it has
Homeless
definitely
shelter.
become- the homeless shelter. It's definitely become possible. But I want to just explain kind of where it started and where it ended. A homeless shelter. Yes. Problem is that you're looking specifically for a Jew.
I mean, among your circle, you definitely have found less fortunate, right, Jewish people.
So-
they're not poor.
So that's the problem. The question is, what's the definition of poor?
That-
And that, by the way, the Talmud gets into. It says if a guy's less fortunate, in other words, if they're deserving of charity every other day of the year, that's for sure, but not necessarily do they fulfill the requirement of being an evyon, a poor person. There's a dollar amount that a person has to have in order to be in this category. But be it as it may, nowadays, and Olga, you mentioned this, they kind of made it for you very simple because there's organizations that are preparing for this. They have lists of people that they're going to give tzedakah to charity to on Purim, because the money needs to arrive, ideally, to the poor person on Purim itself. So if I put it in the charity box and it gets there a month later, then you haven't fulfilled the mitzvah in the best way possible. So mostly the way we do this is, in other words, from my experience, most people are not interacting with the poor person themselves on Purim. The way it works is that there's, either the rabbi of the synagogue or organizations that have been preparing this for a few days or a few weeks in advance, and they have a list of people that they're going to get money to. But when you give money to this organization, you have to ensure that they're going to, let's say I give $100, that I get 50 to one person and 50 of my dollars to another person. Because if I give all $100 to the same person, I only did half the mitzvah. Understand? So you need to be aware of this and either give, one organization $50 and then another organization $50 and hope that they don't give money to the same poor person. Or some organizations have become so sophisticated that you fill out the online form and they tell you, you tell them how many people you are. So let's say if I give on behalf of my family, so I say, okay, or let's say we collect money in this shul, we collect $1,000, and then I go, it's an organization in Israel, then I go on and I have to tell them, it's okay, here's $1,000, but it's representing 20 people to do the mitzvah, so we need to reach 40 different poor people, and so on and so forth. But it's a mitzvah which sounds very easy, and it is, it's very important to give charity, but sometimes it's not that simple to make sure that the money gets to the poor person on that very day, and they're poor in the sense of poor, because practically nowadays in 2025, a lot of the charity that we give is going to institutions. And I don't disapprove of that. I think that's great, right? You give charity to the synagogue, to Chabad of Frisco for the work that they do. You give to a Jewish school. You give to advocacy organizations. A lot of money is not going directly only to poor people. And that's because the definition of poverty in 2025 is a whole lot different than it was 500 years ago, right? What does it mean to be poor today? 200 years ago, poor meant that you were literally starving. But poor in America doesn't mean it's not the same thing. Am I wrong? Or am I,
Poor in America means that you're getting help from the government.
right? You have government access, so you have insurance, you have all sorts of different things. So
No. Like food stamps,
food stamps,
Medicaid.
yeah, that's what I meant, insurance.
Below your.
So the definition of poverty is different than it was. So when we talk about giving money to the poor, you know,
Or I don't know. Again, your family. You have right now 7 people, right, in your family. By definition, dividing what is the average income per person, I'm pretty sure most of the big families can consider poor.
yes.
So,
Again, depends by whose definition, but on Purim, you're looking to give, tzedakah to somebody that needs money for food, basically. That's what you're looking to do. Again, this whole idea is an important idea because in general, we're very discouraged from judging where the charity goes.
okay.
In general, forget about Purim for a second, right? Like a Jewish attitude is not scrutinizing the person that you give charity to. In fact, there's a beautiful teaching that goes like this. Ready? Every mitzvah that we do, we make a blessing before we do the mitzvah. Right? Any mitzvah, any God-given instruction that we do, we have to make a blessing before. You put on tefillin, you make a blessing. Even you read the Megillah, you make a blessing. You shake the lulav, you make a blessing. So there's one mitzvah that there's no blessing for, which is what? The mitzvah of charity. It's a great mitzvah, one of the greatest mitzvahs, right? Charity saves a person from death. There's so many amazing sayings about charity. So how come a person doesn't say a blessing? It should say, every time I put money in the charity box, I should say, thank you, Hashem, for giving me the opportunity of giving tzedakah. So why is there no blessing? So one rabbi once said as follows, said, imagine a poor man knocks on your door, says, I'm so hungry, I'm starving, haven't eaten in 3 days. Can you give me some food? And you're a nice person, you're a sincere Jew. So you say, absolutely, it would be my honor to give you food and to fulfill the mitzvah of giving charity. So you go to your kitchen, you prepare a whole basket of food. And as you come to the door to give it to him, you say, but just before I give you this food, I want to say a blessing because I'm doing a mitzvah. So you start making a blessing. And you're such a religious Jew that you concentrate on the blessing. You don't just say a blessing. You say, blessed are you, Hashem, and you start thinking about God's name, and the greatness, the great spiritual light that you're going to bring into the world by giving the man charity. And for 15, 20 minutes, you're in an elevated state of meditation about the greatness of the mitzvah that you do. You open your eyes to give the poor man his basket of food, and by the time you wake up from he's already fainted on your doorstep, starved to death. You understand? So they said, listen, when it comes to the mitzvah of charity, forget about your blessings. The guy comes to you and says he needs food, give him food. You worry about your elevated state of spirituality and your meditation and your blessing at a different time. It's not, in a similar sense, it's like a teaching with a little bit of a joke element to it, but a very profound one in the sense that tzedakah is the wrong time, charity is the wrong time to analyze or to get stuck in the preparation for the mitzvah. Somebody asks for money, you give money. I know we've spoken about this a lot, but actually it says regarding Purim, kol haposhet yad, whoever stretches out his hand, nosnim lo, you should give him. And traditionally amongst Jewish communities all across the world, Purim is a tremendous day of giving. I'm talking about millions and millions of dollars that are exchanged on Purim, and both to poor people and to institutions. A lot of yeshivot, the boys of the yeshiva, prepare a Purim spiel. You know what a Purim spiel is? Mm-hmm. It's like a play, and they dress up in costume, and they go from house to house. And while you're sitting and having your Purim feast, as we'll talk about in a few minutes, they knock on the door, and they come in, or they don't, they just come inside. They perform for you for a 10-minute, sing-song, nice performance. And the expectation is that you then hand over some money. And they go from house to house to house to house. And here in Frisco, we don't have that kind of community, but I've seen it in LA, I've seen it in New York. And you're talking about some people that give out literally tens of thousands of dollars, to the point that some houses, it's already known, and people wait in line. So it's a tremendous day of giving, and giving without calculation, because in general, that's the attitude, right? That's the whole story with
Enoch.
Yeah. In general, when giving charity, you're not supposed to start judging and saying, is he worthy? Is he not worthy? Because we're told that if we judge who's worthy and who's not worthy, then God judges us. But if we don't judge, then God doesn't judge us. If we give freely, then God gives blessings to us freely. That's a general. Regarding the specific mitzvah of giving tzedakah, the matanot le'avionim on Purim, because you're trying to fulfill a very specific mitzvah, you need to ensure that it lands up in the poor person will receive it on that day. So, not to be confused, in general, giving charity is just somebody asks, you give. But Purim, there is this element that you want to make sure that your tzedakah at least reaches its destination on the day itself and goes to a poor individual, not just, an institution that promotes Torah study or something like that.
In today's world, would a suggestion be to make a donation to a Chabad house, say in the Ukraine, and the rabbi there would give it to people in need?
Yeah, that's possible, but he might, if he's not set up for this, he might not receive your money till a week later. In other words, if I'm sending him money, if I send Ukraine money, say $100, how's he getting that $100 on the day itself? It's probably only going to process 2 days later.
You'd have to do it in advance for him to give it that day.
So the way I do it, and the way I would suggest that you do it as well, is there's 2 or 3 organizations in Israel that they're ready for this, which means they're prepared for this. So as soon as they see my money come in, I say $100, even if it's not processed, they have access to $100 because they're ready for this. And then they're going to basically say, okay, I sent $100, so they're taking $100 on my behalf. And I can instruct them by saying, hey, I'm sending $100 and I need you to reach 2 different people. I could show you the website. So, or in Ukraine, let's say, but go to an organization that is set up for this. There is also, by the way, in Dallas, I don't do it, but there are rabbis that they know individuals that are, struggling. It's not like to all of your points, there's plenty of people that are, whether it's public information or not, they're struggling for money. And if the rabbi will go and meet them on Purim day and take them a few $1,000s or however much they collected from the community. So there's always that option. Whereas on a very local level, if you get the money to the rabbi in time, again, I'm not personally doing that. So if you give me $100, all I can do for you is then send that $100 to Israel, to the organization that I work with. So any of the money that I will receive for Matanot Le'avionim, I will then be passing it on to the organization in Israel. But typically, most people there's always, opportunity on a local level. Now, you might not know somebody and I might not know somebody, but there are people that need money. So let's say the rabbi in the morning does a collection in the synagogue and he collects, again, a few $1,000s, and then he'll go and meet this person typically in private and say, hey, I'm bringing money. But again, you want to make sure that it's reaching two different people. So typically a synagogue would have literally 2 boxes. If you go to the synagogue on Purim, there'll be 2 boxes. One box say this is going to family A, this is going to family B, and then you need to make sure to put $50 in here and $50 in there. The problem with prepaying is that you're supposed to do the mitzvah on Purim itself.
You are, but receiving side, they should receive money on the Purim day.
Ideally, but if not, it's also not the best way, but it's the second best way to do the mitzvah. That if you gave them money, and if they receive after.
So if you know 2 person in Dallas who needs money, so that's pretty much covers it, right?
Yes, 100%. But again, I'm telling you that me personally, I'm not going to 2 poor people on Purim.
But you can go after it. That was just said.
Yeah.
It's also going to be kosher.
But the way I do it is that there's this organization in Israel, and they're running a huge campaign on Purim. And although if you know in specific,
isn't always. I also always have this question. Does your mitzvah going to be more valuable if you give directly to the needed, or if you go to give it to organization who also have an intermediate, right? Intermediate.
Yeah. So typically, the more direct you can go, the better, for sure. But two things. First of all, there's an interesting discussion about charity, about who comes first. Let's say I have $1,000 to give. What's the order of, different people are calling me. So the rule is always first, family comes first. So if there's a family member that needs it, they come first. Then the poor people of your own city come first. And then after the poor people of your own city, then you go into you go further.
And we're talking about only Jewish population.
Yes. There is obviously importance of giving charity to others, for the sake of peace and so on. But in terms of the mitzvah especially the mitzvah of charity on Purim, yes. I do want to say one important thing. So giving charity through organizations is complicated because there's overhead, right? And some of the money gets lost. So if you could give direct, it's more important. But as somebody that works in an organization that receives charity, the organizations can often do a lot more than people can do. So we need also these organizations. So we have part of paying the poor people is paying a salary to somebody to run the organization. Because one of the things that I've learned in my life is a very interesting thing is that a lot of times people need help. They don't tell you they need help. It's not a simple thing to find out from somebody that they need help. Of course, there's some people that are making it obvious that they need help, but a lot of times the person is in financial distress. They're too embarrassed to say. So getting money to people is not always a simple thing, or on an institute. So there's a minus from the institution, but there's also a plus from the institution, right? The minus is, you're right, there's some money gets lost, there's overhead, but on a global level or on a larger scale level, the institution can do much more than an individual could do. But yeah, a lot of very important charities given in very quiet, just from one person to another person. Besides for Purim, I'm just saying, a loan to somebody, a job. These are all elements of charity. Finding somebody who needs help. And by the way, even when I was a kid, I remember there was an organization, they still have it in a lot of places, that every Friday, this organization, would you can do it. I remember my parents doing it. You can drive. They had a route, and you just left a box of food in front of the house, and you ran and you left. You didn't just a box of food that would go out. And there's so many different kinds of forms of charity. Helping to bury the dead, helping a bride and groom to get married.
Physical help, right?
Physical help could be charity. So many, or helping a kid get Jewish education is also charity.
So charity equals tzedakah, right?
Tzedakah, yeah. But again, on Purim, you're specifically, at least to fulfill the mitzvah, you're trying to get your tzedakah, your charity money, to a family, to an individual that is financially strapped. They need money. Beyond that, there's tzedakah to hold up institutions and whatever other money you get. All right. So we spoke about the mitzvah of hearing the Megillah twice. We spoke about giving presents of food, ready-made food, 2 foods to one person. And we spoke about the mitzvah of giving charity, tzedakah, which could reach 2 poor people, ideally on the day of Purim itself. Now, the last mitzvah of Purim is the mitzvah of having a feast, having a party. So a person is obligated to drink and to eat and have a feast, a holiday meal on the day of Purim, and you should light candles in the way you would on a holiday. And the more you celebrate, the more honor it brings to the holiday of Purim. So this obviously can take it wherever you want, but you should sit down and wash and make the motzi blessing on bread, and you should have a feast, eat meat and chicken and drink wine, so on and so forth.
Right, but it's not just like a holiday. It's more like it is a holiday, but the feast and the party, isn't it taken to the excess?
Yes, so there is a teaching or a writing, to John's point. The Gemara, the Talmud tells us that a person should get drunk on Purim. till he does not know the difference between blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman. I would strongly caution you on drinking excessively. It's bad for your health. It's bad for all sorts of different things. But there is this idea on Purim how the joy kind of breaks boundaries. So whereas other days we might act a little bit more contained or a little bit more restrict our dancing and joy, Purim has this way of kind of pushing that a little bit, right? We're still always in the presence of Hashem, and therefore a person always has to behave appropriately. Purim should not be used as an excuse to say or speak or act in a non-dignified, non-respectful, non-modest way. So all of that has to be, comes first. But there definitely is this idea where Purim is kind of about pushing, a little bit against the walls of the restrictions and to dance and rejoice and to say teachings of the Torah, which kind of go beyond what we would usually.
Isn't a little bit deeper, meaning when person drunk, he starts saying truth. Is there something like that to help to reveal true?
Right. So I'll tell it to you in the Talmud. It's a crazy story because it says as follows. It says a person should get drunk on Purim till he does not know the difference between blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman. Then the Talmud tells a story as follows. It says that one time, a great rabbi by the name of Rabbah invited another great rabbi by the name of Reb Zera to his house for Purim to have the Purim feast together. And it said that at the Purim feast, they got drunk, and Rabbah, who was the host, got up, and Shachta, he slaughtered Reb Zera. He slaughtered him, that's what it says. And then it says the next day, he begged God for mercy, and he brought him back to life. Now he was back to living. 1 year later, Purim the next year, the same host, Rabbah, comes to Reb Zera, and he says, you want to come back to my house? Let's do the Purim party again together. So Reb Zera said, can't come because we don't know if miracles are going to happen again. You can't rely on miracles. I don't know if miracles. Last year you brought me back to life. I don't know what's going to happen here. So it's a bizarre story.
So he was sure that he's going to be killed,
and he wasn't even sad about it.
So he planned for miracle, meaning that okay, he knew that he going.
So he didn't go the second year because he said, "I can't rely on the miracle," right? Which is a crazy story because he doesn't seem to be upset, and the great sage, great righteous man killing somebody else. So the Rebbe has a very fascinating discussion, and the Rebbe explains basically as follows: that what happened? The two of them sat down together, and the saying is that nichnas yayin, when the wine goes in, yatsa so, the secrets come out. And actually, the Hebrew word yayin for wine has the same numerical value as the Hebrew word for sod, which means secret. So the two of them began to drink, and Rabbah, who was the greater of the two rabbis, began to teach Torah and the secrets of the Torah, the depths of the Torah, the way he understood it, the way he knew it. And he went so deep, he let out such deep secrets of the Torah because he kept drinking, and that loosened his inhibition, and he let out such deep secrets of the Torah, and he pulled Reb Zera, Shachtei, the Rebbe explains, which means literally slaughter, but it also means to pull. He pulled Reb Zera, the other sage, along for this journey of such deep secrets of the Torah that at some point Reb Zera, the lesser of the two, could not handle the depth and the secret of the Torah. And he could, in other words, it was too much for his soul, like it was that his soul left his body as a result, which you have numerous stories in the Talmud where, as a result of a person kind of seeing too much or the love of Hashem kind of being too strong, they literally perished out of a result of too much spiritual pursuit. Multiple stories that these great people, they felt so, they wanted to come close to Hashem, their body, their soul left their body. So the nichnas yain, the wine came in, yatsa sod, out came the secrets. The secrets means the secrets of the Torah. And he kept pushing and pushing and pushing the boundaries. Rabbah, the greater one, he was able to handle it, but at some point, Reb Zera, the lesser great of the two, although very great in his own right, wasn't able to handle this great revelation of Torah secrets that he was not accustomed to, that literally his soul left his body and he died. The next day, the living rabbi prayed for mercy for him, and he brought him back to life. So 1 year later, when he said, come back, it's not that he didn't want to do it. He said, really, I would want to do it. It was the most incredible experience of my life. You opened for me, channels and ideas. I've never experienced such greatness in my life. I would actually love to come. I want to be part of this. But I can't be sure that if you push me over the edge again, you're going to be able to bring me back to life, and therefore it's the irresponsible thing to do. So the concept of drinking in its ideal thing is, you're 100% right, which is that it's not just about drinking and then, dancing and standing in your head. It's about drinking and then being able to teach deeper and deeper secrets of the Torah, which the average person is not capable of. By the way, even at the Rebbe would host a Hasidic gathering every year on Purim. So people would go home, start their Purim feast at home, and then come to the 770, come to the Rebbe synagogue. And a lot of times you see that the Rebbe was speaking in ways which are, kind of uncharacteristic, much more lively, much deeper. And the Rebbe would speak for hours, and he would also drink wine, and people in attendance would drink wine. So that's the real way of drinking the wine on Purim, where you drink wine, you're opening up. And then if you're sitting at the feet of a true Torah master, they're opening up. And ideally, you're now open to more, you're opening yourself up to deeper ideas and to a new mindset. And the teacher is kind of teaching you. But again, in the right setting, that's a very positive thing. In the wrong setting, just a bunch of guys getting around and getting drunk. Where's the holiness in that? So you have to know who you are and where you are.
So which is more common?
Yeah. Again, when you drunk, your ability to comprehend information become less.
Right.
But ability to share information become more. So it's if they both drink equally, right? One becomes sharper because he's want to express something. Another become duller because, okay, I'm drunk. I don't really hear you. I'm just in my own world.
And do you remember it the next day?
Right, and you don't remember.
Well,
but look like in your story, it's opposite. Both become sharper in their own way, right? One becomes sharper to express and get to the next level of expression Torah, and another becomes so sensitive.
To your point, we're going into the story recognizing that these were two of the great sages, each one a very, very righteous, person. So the intentions were never, just drinking for the sake of partying or anything like that.
Right, but what I'm trying to say, it's probably deeper meaning. I'm always looking to understand that the partying can impact you many different ways, right?
Yeah, the deeper meaning that I'm sharing with you, by the way, is a tremendously new, refreshing view on that story in the Talmud. Because if you read the story, all the story says is that Rabbah and Reb Zera had the Purim party together. And at that party, they got drunk, or Rabbah got drunk. And he got up and he slaughtered Reb Zera. The next day, he begged for mercy, brought him back to life. And the next year, he said, let's do it again. And Reb Zera said, I can't rely on miracles. So there's so many different commentaries about what happened over here. Some people say it's just a metaphor. He didn't really kill him, and he got him so drunk that he passed out. But the Rebbe and others have this, spiritual way of explaining the story, which is that, and there's other stories in the Torah that are similar to this, that the wine, and to your point, exactly how this works, that they were tremendously great people, and the wine opened them up, and they were studying the depth of Torah, and Rabbah was able to handle it. Reb Zera at some point was not, and his soul flew out of his body. Just even for that to happen, you have to be a tremendously great person. You have to have such a drive, such a thirst for Hashem, that at some point your soul actually flies out your body because you're reaching for something you can't you can't get. You know, the first Chabad Rebbe, the one who wrote the Tanya, when he was arrested, so they brought not a psychiatrist, but it's like a psychoanalyst or something. What's it called? Like Freud was a psychoanalyst.
Freud.
Yeah. What was his?
Sigmund Freud.
Yeah, what was his official? It's not a psychiatrist, but it's like a psychoanalyst or something. Whatever it is. So they brought
philosopher.
They brought one of these experts to interview the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe. He was in prison. I mean, so they sat and they spoke. And the analysis was, they said about the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, that he's looking for something that he'll never get. They sensed in him that he's yearning for something that he can never get. Now, I don't know if the psychoanalyst understood what he was saying or what that meant, but he can tell on the person that he was yearning for and searching for God, and you can never get it because it's Hashem, so you'll always be searching for more and more and more and more. And by the way, the Alter Rebbe himself, on more than one occasion, said that he was on the verge of dying as a result of his, spiritual yearnings for Hashem. On more than one occasion. One occasion he said he was studying, and in the middle of the study he had to run and eat a bagel with butter. In other words, he had to ground himself because otherwise his soul would have busted out of his body. So here you have these two greats, and they're not amateurs where, they drink a bunch of wine and now they're singing stupid old songs because they're drunk. I mean, they're pushing and revealing deeper and deeper Torah secrets, and one is greater than the other. Possibly this idea that you're sharing, one is sharing and one is receiving. I don't know exactly how the dynamic worked between the two of them, but at some point it was too much for one of them to handle, and his soul left his body, and the other one was able to handle it. And that's why the next year he wasn't even against the proposition.
You heard about mediums, right?
Tell me.
No, you know who's mediums are? Do you know?
Is that a person?
Mediums?
Person?
Yeah, people who has ability to
communicate with the dead or something?
No, for other spirits, communicate with other spirits or other spirits to take their body.
Mm.
And while there's so many examples of
this. No, I've heard of what you're talking about.
Of this mediums. So when I just read a book about this. So they explain their experience. So when other soul enters your body, your soul is not there. Your soul deposited, and it's so much trust and energy that again, it's just
right. Also, there's a lot of people that
common discussions because it's so scary.
And it's all similar to that. People that get very sick and then they have like these near-death experiences, right? They say that they kind of come back, and they say, you ever read about that?
Yeah, they say themselves. Yeah,
they say their soul, and they kind of, and they're almost like it's like walking a tightrope. If they lean a little bit too much this way, then they're going to go into the next road, and these kinds of things. All right, I just want to finish with one last point, which is a fascinating idea, which is that Purim in Jerusalem, and I mentioned this last week, is celebrated one day later. So we celebrate Purim on the 14th day of Adar, but in Jerusalem, they celebrate Purim on the 15th of Adar, which this year is very complicated because this year Purim, the 15th of Adar, is on Shabbos, and you can't read the Megillah on Shabbos. So they actually they have like this mixture where it's a little bit on the 14th, a little bit on the 15th this year, but usually regular, all of these mitzvot that we just spoke about, giving charity to the poor, sending gifts of food, reading the Megillah, everything like that, we do on the 14th, and they do one day on the 15th. And if you're in Israel, you can go out of Jerusalem for the 14th, celebrate Purim on the 14th, and then on the 15th, go to Jerusalem and have a second day of Purim as well.